Welcome to episode 64 of a Cigar Hustlers Podcast. This week we sit down and talk to Jeff Mouette from Riverside Cigars. Hope you enjoy the show. Be watching out for the surprise interviewer towards the end. Okay, it's on.
So I want to talk to you about something that you casually mentioned, but I haven't addressed just yet.
What'd I do?
You did something.
Don't do it all. Save it for the air.
We're on.
We're recording.
We're officially. See, now people know you're in the room. Now they know you're here, and you're not even being interviewed just yet. So now they got to wait till next week.
Oh, that's right. It's a whole other week.
Yeah.
This is a separate show.
Yeah, and if it's like an 8-hour interview, it's fucking.
You might be good for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we just don't have to do a single podcast ever again.
Perfect.
Ever. This is going to be the final podcast. So, anyways,
what'd I do?
You went ahead and you casually dropped this during one of our podcasts, so that we had a great review on iTunes. You know, so I look at it and I'm like, wow, that was really well said. Whoever fucking looked at it, that was really nice.
It was a great interview.
And then I look at the fucking review and it says,
you being so angry.
Mike P on it. I'm like, motherfucker.
I didn't realize I put my name on until it's too late.
So
you can't take that shit back down.
It's a fantastic review. It's very well liked, and
they said I was funny and you were angry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, oh wow, that son of a bitch who wrote that.
So you're telling me you never reviewed your own shop on Google?
No, I mean, I guess I would. I don't think that I ever have.
Tilt the microphone up for him a little bit.
So you get the.
You got to talk right into it.
Yeah, you just
Like
got to
There
take
you
it.
go.
You got to be right in your face. So we have a couple special guests tonight. It's going to lead into a few
Cigar Hustlers Podcast After Dark episode.
Yes, yeah.
Hope it goes better than the last one.
Because when Skip comes into town, it's a fucking tornado of my life, and he likes making everything very, very interesting. I don't want to get ahead of it because that's going to be the next episode. But the message said, "Be ready for anything," and I wasn't ready for everything.
We're going till 3 a.m.
Yeah, 3 a.m. So, but we do have a very good friend of mine, Mr. Jeff Mouette from Riverside.
You said it right.
I know, I'm a professional.
Thank you.
In Springfield, Indiana. In Jeffersonville, Indiana. So say hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing great.
So, this is cool because we don't get to interview a lot of retailers in the industry. We only get a handful of people that actually fucking come out here that are retailers. But if you're in the industry and we think that you got a good story to tell, we'll definitely put you on the spot. And this just kind of worked out really well. Here you are, you're in Tampa, and you decided to come out. Why are you in Tampa?
In Tampa for the Senate subcommittee hearing with Marco Rubio, and decided to come down and see you guys. But don't ask me any questions about retailing because I don't know what I'm doing.
Bullshit.
I'm just figuring it out as I go along.
Fuck out of here.
He's given up sleep to be here. I mean, he has to go from here to the airport.
But I think that, Jeff has been my roommate in many of the adventures into Esteli, Nicaragua. So,
He snores.
Yeah, I do snore.
Any night terrors?
Night terrors yet?
No, I miss those.
Hasn't had the night. Well, see, here's the thing: is that Skip wears us out to a point where I just, you fall asleep. So I don't know where I was going with that. Now that you totally fucking put me on blast.
Sorry.
We have Robin Quivers back in the house. Oh, look.
Sorry. Oh,
You got to put the mic. There you go.
I don't even know. Hello?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay, all right.
You're on. You got to get up to it.
So-
Just in case.
So yeah, so we know each other pretty well. We've been through some shit. How long have you been in retail there, Jeffrey?
We're coming up on our 8-year anniversary.
Nice.
And I spent.
That's why we made him a 10-year anniversary cigar.
Right.
Now wait a minute. Okay, now this is a good space. This is a really good space to clear the air on this because every time for the last 3 years, about 5 or 6 months before our anniversary, I asked Skip for an anniversary cigar.
Right.
4-year, 5-year, 6-year. He's like, man, you got to ask me earlier. So this last time, fucking with him, 3 months before our 8-year anniversary, I said, hey, you going to make me a 10th anniversary cigar? He goes, I got an idea. I got you, brother.
Yes.
And by that point, it was too far gone
It was
to
happening.
let it go, so we just let it happen.
So Skip is obviously in the room, and we don't have a mic in front of him because he's not supposed to fucking say anything for this entire podcast.
I'm in the audience.
But he can't resist, so I'm sure he'll be chiming in from time to time.
We only have a 4-mic show too, so we don't.
Yeah, the struggle is real. But this is our second podcast downstairs in the non-smoking
smoking lounge.
with the ashtrays.
More ashtrays this time than last time.
So you've been in the industry for 8 years.
8 years.
I mean, you've definitely seen a lot of dynamics change as far as, what's hot, what's not. How do you decide what makes you decide to carry something new? Let me ask you that.
Well, that calculus has kind of changed over the last couple of years with so much not new stuff coming out anymore with this FDA stuff looming
that's
over
true.
us that it's been really tough.
Mm-hmm.
My original concept was I wouldn't put anything in the humidor unless I smoked it and thought it was really special.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first 5 years, I did not put one cigar in the humidor that I didn't smoke and think was really good. Of course, I didn't carry any of the big names
Right.
at all. I carried all boutique, all small brand, all stuff that pretty much I knew the brand owner or I didn't carry it. Now that by necessity has changed
Right.
with the with the FDA landscape and all that going on.
So but you still had consumers coming in asking for like your Monte Cristo Whites and your Romeo and Juliets and shit, right?
Yeah, so I broke down and started carrying some of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like it's just a given. There's nothing you can do. Skip's taking fucking pictures.
Oh, God.
He's like a little fucking tourist. This is giddy as a schoolgirl.
Stop talking to him. He's not really here yet.
I'm letting people know what's going on in the room.
You're like interrupting yourself now.
I can't help myself.
Oh,
I don't
I'm
even have
excited.
to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so obviously you've integrated some things, but like still new shit's coming out. Like I think a lot of as FDA has kind of progressed, and like when we first heard about it 2 or 3 years ago, it was like.
Everybody locked up.
Yeah, like a
Nothing was coming
fucking
out.
atom bomb went off, and nobody was going to make anything new. And then like reps would come into the shop, and they're not supposed to give you cigars, so they'd casually leave them on the fucking counter. I'm like, dude, give me a fucking break. Like that shit
Right.
would legit happen. But now, as it's kind of progressed, and I think that we've learned that FDA doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, so a lot of guys are still making new stuff.
Well, and a lot of that depends on how you read the legislation or the proposed legislation and the rulemaking, and people are going to read it how they want to read it. I
Right.
mean, the way Skip is reading it, dark air cured tobacco with vegetable gum, same box count, and you're good.
Right.
And General and Altadis don't want to read it that way. They want to read it down to the Viso, Seiko, Lajero from this farm and that farm,
Right.
both sides to their benefit.
Right.
So it's really convoluted the landscape a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you excited about anything else new that's coming out? I mean, I heard that there's something that's coming your way. I mean, and I'll just tell you right now, I get a fucking ton of DMs and private messages and bullshit about.
I have no idea what you're talking
about this
about.
cigar that's coming out, and it's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks, right?
Couple weeks now.
So what do you got? What do
So
you got coming?
our 10th anniversary cigar
Yeah, for
on
your-
our 8th
Yeah.
anniversary is being released. The event is actually May 3rd, but we've obviously done quite a bit of pre-sale for them.
Right.
So I think they're shipping in 2 weeks.
And what is it?
Craft 2019.
Which
It's based on the Cro-Magnon blend. It's a Lonsdale size.
yeah.
And there are 14 different patterns on the cigar. Mm-hmm. What are they? Half and half Candela and Ecuador, Connecticut, Skip. So half of them will be
He's being
Candela
quiet now.
and Cro-Magnon. Yeah, amazing. Hardly ever happens.
We got the door open too. Can you hear the chirping in the background or no?
A little bit.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
It's nice.
Ambiance.
Yeah, it's romantic. So people
Just
are
add
gonna
in sound effects of the nature.
10 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to be jamming out to the evening sesh.
Right. I tried to cover the air conditioner. It's got that fan that won't
Yeah.
blow off. There was a remote on top of the air conditioner.
Really?
Battery's dead, of course, but
Don't use the bathroom in here.
no, not yet. It's clean, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. So
Well, thank God we can smoke.
no,
No,
we're not smoking. We're not
There's no smoking going on.
There's
There's no smoking at all.
Nothing is happening.
No smoking.
There's no smoking in here.
He
We're not
came down
smoking.
today and he smells like smoke in here. Like nobody's smoking in here. Greg.
How can you? First of all, how can you leave the cigar store and go into anywhere else and say that it smells like smoke.
Right.
Like, that's not fucking
No.
possible.
I said that's the mold, Greg. That's the black mold.
Yeah, exactly. It's the cancer that's in the fucking walls that you're smelling.
That was mold over there on the wall.
So, like,
The
I
gray
mean,
stripe.
you know, we've had a couple of adventures together. Like, I honestly didn't think that you were coming today. So, like, I'm totally not prepared for this podcast, so I'm doing my best to wing it and provide as much content and information to kind of lob up to you so you can talk
I
about
totally
it.
didn't think I was going to come either.
Right.
But
you would, you know,
being with Disaster over
Disaster.
here and
fucking disaster.
Just along for
I
the
mean,
ride.
and honestly, I'm in Tampa. I'm only an hour and a half or 2 hours away from you, and you know, I couldn't resist the opportunity, even if it means 2 sleepless nights in a row.
You'll recover.
I'll recover.
You'll be fine.
I'll recover. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
So what was like, what's been the hardest hurdle for you as a retailer? I mean, because you've been through some shit, you know?
Well, you know, I was kind of joking at the beginning, but I was kind of not joking at the beginning. I worked at a retail store for 2 years, and all I really learned there was what not to do. So I really never learned. I mean, I had an idea in my head
Right.
of all the things that I saw that were wrong with that shop that I wasn't going to do, and I never really. I just kind of learned as I go along, and I'm still learning every day.
Right.
I mean, I try to the best of my ability, try to find something to get better at every day.
Right.
And whether that's providing really good customer service or getting a website up or working on a consistent communication plan with our customers, I've worked on all that stuff over the last year.
Right.
He took notes in our last patio session.
Yeah,
I did
he
take notes in the last patio
He did take
session.
notes. We both took notes.
But, you know, if you can get a little bit better every day, you don't have to know it all to start.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you know, the business. What the fuck is the quote? Now I'm gonna fuck it up. Improving the business is the business. You know, and that's kind of like that's definitely the design. And if you do focus on that, yeah, you'll get better and you'll see more revenue and right, all of that kind of builds up.
I mean, I'm only buying my shop back for the 3rd time now in 8 years, so
Yeah.
it's not bad.
Yeah,
if this can be the last time, I'll be all right.
Hopefully, hopefully
I
it
mean,
is
one
for
more
you.
lawsuit to settle, and we're all good. So, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Right. So, like, I mean, you did try with the second location, and that's obviously difficult too, right? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, all of it's kind of a process, right? You know, as you kind of go through, you make mistakes along the way. You know,
Well, I can't talk about the second store because it's still in litigation.
Oh.
But
All right. Well, hey, I guess my
Nobody
point is.
listens anyway. So.
I guess yeah. I guess my point is that
just in case.
Mike P loves it.
That one guy.
Yeah.
But Mike P on iTunes loves it.
it's a great hit. Yeah, Mike B's a huge fan. So, but you know, I guess my point was that you know, nobody's perfect, right? Every retailer always kind of makes mistakes. I mean, a lot of the retailers don't even fucking try, right? And you know, you're one of the select few that actually does try and make changes and growth and continue to produce, right? And you know,
Well, we're in a unique spot, but,
Right.
but not all that unique when you look at other retailers in the world that are trying to compete with Amazon
Right.
or Walmart or whoever they're trying to compete with.
Right.
And you know, we learn from, or I try to learn from them, and I know you've learned from them, and we're not so much from the day we opened. I've always said we're not selling cigars, we're not selling booze, we're
Right.
selling an experience.
Right.
And you have to create an experience for your consumer. And that's what we've really tried to do over the last 8 years and get better and better at that. But
Right.
there's a lot more to running a retail operation
Fuck
than
yeah.
just creating an experience for people, and that's where the learning process comes in.
yeah, absolutely. And employees.
What's she
are fucking
laughing
hard,
about?
Too, right?
Mike's
She's
over there
laughing at me.
making some noise
Made
on
like
his
a gong
ashtray.
go
I
off,
don't know,
'cause I
it's like a
dinged the
dog.
ashtray.
This is
So-
weird.
I'm adding sound effects to the show. over here.
So you got one solid dude in your shop, right? That's an employee for you, right?
Right.
Justin.
Justin.
I mean, and I think that a lot of people don't understand that, for one, how difficult it is to find somebody reliable, and for two, like how dependent you become on somebody like that. Because you know, if you had no Justin, you wouldn't be able to get on a plane, right?
Right. And it's, you know, that's, especially with the bar portion, it's exponentially more difficult to find reliable help.
Right.
I'm really, really lucky and grateful for somebody like Justin that comes in and works 40 hours every week. He's never late. There's never money missing out of the till. The customers all love him. I mean, that's just,
Right.
that's pure love.
Makes it.
And of course, we got 4X on the counter 2 nights a week, too.
Yeah.
You know him, right? Blanca?
I don't know.
4X?
I don't know if I met him or not.
Thoroughbred Cigar Distribution?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a good dude. He's definitely a good dude. What about you? You got something to say, Michael?
I've only met Jeff one other time. I know
The legend of Jeffrey.
little to nothing about him.
He's my little spoon
I know who.
in my many adventures.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, tell a story about an adventure.
Well, I can tell you that when I was
Just one time.
I mean, which one time?
Is he a cuddler or does he?
It depends.
It depends?
It all depends on the day.
Oh.
you know.
Depends if he's snoring or not.
Yeah.
Jeff's on fire with the cigar. He almost leaned into the microphone. His old cigar was.
Smoking.
I can tell you that when I was fucking driving my brother-in-law up to North Dakota, all of a sudden I'm going across this bridge and I'm like, holy shit, we're like right at Jeff's
right
spot.
at Jeff's spot. Oh.
So I pulled right in and he was like, what the fuck are you doing here? I was like, I have no idea.
That's
I got
literally
lost and found
exactly
your
what
shop.
happened.
Yeah.
What in the fuck are you doing here?
So I just rolled in. He's got a really cool spot. You know, he's got a lot of bourbon. You know, and I really think that a bar aspect really kind of helps as a cigar store because, you know, it alleviates some of the pressure of the churn as well as increases overall gross sales both in cigars and added revenue.
Right.
You know, I don't know what other good stories you got to tell. I mean,
I can tell
Anything
stories
embarrassing?
on you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell
go
something
ahead.
good and embarrassing about him.
Oh, yes, please.
Something that his wife has not heard yet.
oh great, should I fucking sleep on the couch?
I don't
He's
have
here
any
in the
good
studio.
stories about you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
Never
isn't.
does anything.
Oh, see, that's how what a good
But you
friend
haven't
he
hit the
is.
night terrors yet. You haven't gotten those yet.
I haven't got the night terrors
Yeah.
yet. That's true.
Just wait, it'll
Just the
come.
snoring.
Just for the record, it's been a while for the night terrors.
Yeah,
You know,
it has.
you know,
Fucking nom.
there's some shit that I don't necessarily want to disclose on the podcast, but it is what it is. I
No,
guess
we don't. It's just sometimes, it happens.
we just live.
Nice.
My life is an open book. I should have came to that reality when I put the mic in front of me, right? So, you want to hit him with the 5 questions?
Sure, we can do the 5 questions. Already? It's only 17
So
minutes in.
now you've listened to the podcast before, right?
I have.
Okay, so you are aware of the 5 questions?
I am aware of the 5 questions.
So-
although I didn't know I was doing a podcast tonight, and I haven't prepared anything for the 5 questions.
That's true.
So he's stalling to get the questions.
Okay.
Okay, we'll hit him fast. Okay, one person, living or dead, would you like to share a cigar with?
Winston Churchill.
See, he's prepared.
Yeah, he's definitely
Yeah.
prepared.
Okay, what fictitious person would you like to share a cigar with?
Roland from Stephen King's Gunslinger.
Why'd you pick that guy?
He's a badass.
Yeah.
Skip for the win because he is a badass.
So, I know that you read a lot of books. Do you read a lot of fictional books as well as?
About half and half right now.
Oh, I do have something to tell you. I mean, you definitely fucked up my life. The last trip that we were in Esteli, you showed me these K-Swiss shoes, and you said, "Hey, these are Gary V's," and I go, "Who the fuck is Gary V?"
Oh.
Yeah. So now, because I'm a big believer in personal development and I like all that shit, I feel like I'm dating Gary V. I'm involved. Everything that I listen to is fucking Gary Vaynerchuk. As Skip shakes his head, no.
We should
But you-
have that motivational discussion on the podcast. That
What do you
was
wanna
all- I
talk
wish we
about?
could recreate that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we would.
We agreed, but we disagreed
Oh,
for
yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah. It's funny because he's all about he poo-pooed on everything that I say, but then he's rocking the fucking Gary V shoes. I'm like, wait a second now. That doesn't fucking make a lot of sense, He's rocking those.
I'm actually in the middle of Blue Ocean Strategy that I think maybe Skip recommended,
Yeah.
or maybe somebody, I don't remember who recommended it to me.
I'm going through Crushing It right now.
And it's really interesting trying to figure out different avenues for this business and how to apply all that stuff to the
Right.
cigar business.
Yeah, because the shitty part about, any form of advertising is a lot of it's restricted when it comes to tobacco sales.
Right.
So even though it's a
I mean, if you were really crushing it, you would have already finished the book.
I guess you got a point.
He's busy cold plunging everything.
No. Cold plunging liquor.
You want to know? I can tell you why I haven't finished the book. So that's the book that I listen to in my car when I travel. The fucking problem is this motherfucker releases a new podcast every goddamn day.
Every day?
Every day. Like, he is a content fucking beast. So I'm like, oh, I'll listen to the podcast today. You know, and then I listen to the podcast, and then I listen to the book. So it takes a little bit longer to get through it. But he's pretty impressive, man. I like his perspective.
Is that the guy that curses?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Guy that curses.
I love a guy that curses.
Yeah, he's just being real, you know. So thanks for. I tagged you on one of his things recently too.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed it or not. So all right, sorry. Continue with your question, sir.
What's your favorite cigar?
And if you say
I don't
fucking
wanna be a
Herrera
fucking
Escalante, I'm
wanna
gonna
be
beat
a
you to death
fucking-
with this fucking
I
microphone.
don't want to be a fucking shill.
Pretend like he's not here.
Cro-Magnon.
Yeah. Because as soon as you went to
God,
my
I
fucking
hate that.
humidor, you grabbed 3 of them.
I know I did because I haven't had one in like 45 days.
That's
because
crazy.
somebody can't make enough.
You got to buy in bulk.
I do. I got 10 bundles coming this
You
week.
got to expand,
I'm trying,
and then you got to hoard some.
but they want me to pay for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's the whole process.
And I got other people that want money too.
Yeah,
One in
that's-
particular that we're not going to talk about.
So what else is that?
Best piece of advice anyone ever gave you?
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice other than buy some K-Swisses from Gary Vee that anybody ever fucking gave you?
That doesn't count.
No.
The best piece of advice anybody ever gave me. See, I
Yeah.
told you I wasn't prepared for this.
This is all, I like that.
Probably the best piece of advice I've ever gotten is that my influence over anything ends at the tip of my nose,
Yeah.
and I can't control anything anybody else does.
True. Very true.
So not real profound, but it helps me get through a lot of stuff where I want to bitch and moan and scream and yell, and I find out usually when somebody pisses me off, it's not their fault really. It's my fault for having an expectation of them being a certain way, and they're going
Right.
to be how they are, and that's their responsibility, not mine.
Lower your expectations of people.
Of
and
other
you
people,
don't
yeah.
get so pissed off.
Exactly.
Who told you that?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember.
Let's skip smiling over
I don't
here.
think it was Skip.
I would have thought it would have been something I told her.
I already gave you the EMH. What else you want?
Very true. Okay, so you have the craft coming out. You're working on a website. You want to plug the website so that if anybody knows how to get in touch with you?
www.riversidecigarshop.com.
All right.
It is open. It is online. We're going to open up Craft 2019 for reservations for the people that have already reserved probably later this week. And
Cool.
the website is up and running and operational.
Very nice. Now, what
And
about...
that's thanks to you kicking my butt over doing it, by the way. So thank you.
Yeah, dude, you know I'm here for you. I'm happy to fucking help any
Actually,
way that
you
I
said,
can.
you fucking sissy, just go do it. So I did it.
You got to take the leap, you know? What about on Instagram? You have an Instagram name or anything like that?
Riverside Cigars.
Riverside Cigars, and then what about Facebook?
Riverside Cigars.
Riverside Cigars.
And Match Cigar Bar.
All right, there you go. So how's that for a little short? We
Good.
I
We're in
think
the
this is
30-minute
kind
That was
range-ish.
relatively painless.
this is this is a good approach because like you have this podcast and then this is the documentary of World War II is coming up right thereafter, so it's like an 8-hour episode.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to take over the production. I can think of like 30 more questions to ask Jeff.
Okay.
Because I mean, look.
All right, so go with the top 5 and fucking ask them.
Well, okay, so this is
Yeah, turn that way.
Real talk. I've been into a lot of cigar stores in probably something like 20 different countries, and there's not a lot of great ones.
True.
And you know, people all the time say, "Hey, man, I want to open a cigar store. What do you think I should do? I've got you know $14,000 saved up. I'm ready to crush it." You know, but actually, I started interacting with Jeff
on
when he
Twitter.
when he was finishing his MBA,
No shit.
and there was a lot of questions going back and forth about is this going to be useful? I'm going to be in business for myself. I'm not sure why I'm going to finish this because, I don't need a degree to go into business for myself. And so the very first thing I told him, I said, put your business plan together while you're in school. Mm-hmm. And everything that you study in school, apply to how it's going to apply to the business that you're going to be in.
Right.
So my first question for you, Jeff, would be, from business school or from your undergraduate degree, what are the things that you find every day differentiate you from, say, someone who didn't finish school? For all those entrepreneurs that say, I bootstrapped myself and school didn't matter.
School of hard knocks?
Yeah. Because it does matter.
Right.
It does matter. But, the most important thing I think I learned from school, and this is not something I necessarily learned there, but the terminology that people use in business school and in business is not really, how do I explain this? Okay, pro forma scared the hell out of me, right? How am I going to do a pro forma? I don't know what a pro forma is. I don't blah, 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 blah. Well, you go to school and you learn a pro forma is a bunch of fucking guesses stacked on a bunch of fucking guesses, stacked on a bunch of fucking guesses that nobody's ever going to know where you came up with, what your assumptions were, where you went with that. And every little piece of a business plan or a prospectus or any business paperwork is full of pro formas and things like that. And the confidence that gave me just to learn that, that's what this means. That's what this means. That's what this means. I put a business, you and I had that conversation. I put a business plan together that I never thought I'd be able to put together.
Yeah. So I can tell you the biggest piece of advice you didn't listen to.
I believe it.
Because I distinctly remember this conversation.
I distinctly remember it too. Here it goes.
This was
don't have a business partner.
2000. Maybe it was like 2009.
9 or 10.
Yeah, and the discussion was about the capital raise for opening the store, and I said, look, you're way better off opening small with the capital you have and pouring your capital back into it,
Right.
than getting a partner.
Right.
Because a partner is going to own you for 50% of everything forever.
Right.
They're never going to work as hard as you. They're never going to do, unless you find a partner like Greg, who's your brother.
Well, yeah, he's never going to go away in my life.
Exactly.
So.
You can't. You can't. I mean,
Can't get rid of him.
If you came to me and said, "Hey, I like Mike Palmer. Mike Palmer's got $200,000. We're going to open a store together," I would say, "I love Mike Palmer. That's the dumbest idea. Go borrow $200,000 from, Donnie Brasco,
Right.
and pay the vig because it's going to be a lot better."
And for the record, that was the first time I bought my store back.
But that isn't something that you learn in business school.
It should be.
Right.
Just like in high school, you should learn how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
And use a debit card and do all those basic things in life.
Right.
In business school, they should teach you.
Why would they want you to learn that shit, bro? Fucking, they want you to be in debt. And
So the biggest piece of advice he never listened to was, there's no amount of capital worth bringing a big business partner in just for money.
Right.
Now, you can bring a business partner in because they complement you and do things. Like, for example, my business partner, Roma, Mike Rosales,
Right.
is a completely different guy than me.
Yes.
I trust him. He works as hard as me. He has a completely different skill set than me. He looks at things completely differently than I do.
Right.
You still have to have one person that's in charge.
Right.
I mean, Mike
Which
would
is
never.
Fiorella.
Mike would never argue with the fact that when it comes to push comes to shove, and anything that we're kind of across the table from, I'm going to have the last say in it.
Right.
Especially if it's in my area, which is the overall general business.
Right.
If it's in which store to open, how to do sales, how to manage salespeople,
Right.
I don't even get involved in those decisions because Mike ultimately makes those decisions. But
Now stop fucking talking about you, because this is about Jeffrey.
well, yeah. So that was the first piece of advice I didn't listen to.
All right.
Well, actually, that I didn't listen to, correct. But the first piece, this is all Skip's fault, by the way. I want this on the record because I was essentially whining to Skip that I really wanted to open a cigar store, and I
Right.
saw everything that was wrong with the one I was working at part-time when I was going to school. And I remember the exact direct message on Twitter. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
that I
know
really
the
want to open
clicking
a cigar
picks up.
store, but I don't have $250,000 or access to $250,000.
Right.
And his answer was bullshit. You don't need $250,000.
Yeah, I mean, we put this store together on a shoestring.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And plow your money back
What you
in.
do have to have is the ability to work for a year or two without making any money.
Right.
Yes.
So we
Or
just
in his case, 8 years.
right.
The second piece of advice he didn't listen to
Yeah.
was to sell his house, buy his partner out,
Right.
and then he would have had a lot less to lose in his divorce.
Right.
But then that made his wife cry. I had to listen to that for 2 hours coming back from.
And hear about it for 3 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the second piece of advice he didn't listen to.
I didn't have any choice in that particular piece of advice.
The third piece of advice was, hey, I have this opportunity to open up another store. Should I do it? And I said, absolutely.
Right.
And that store failed. Still a great piece of advice.
Right.
Because you learn a lot more from that failure.
Sure.
And we've had this conversation together, the
course.
three of us, where you look at it as a failure. You look at how much money you lost. You look at all the reasons why you shouldn't have done it, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Right.
But how much better is your core store for all the lessons you learned in the second store?
Right.
Very much so. Very much so.
Right.
And it's hard to look past the monetary aspect of it and everything else that fell apart with that. But the core store is stronger than it ever was.
So what's the next question?
Well, let's ruminate on that one a little bit. That's,
Okay.
He did listen to that piece of advice.
Right.
Turned out to be a failure. Great piece of advice.
Right. And he's definitely learned a lot because of it. Right.
Right.
True.
The biggest thing I think we've all learned together, because we're kind of like a mentor group, I would
Right.
say. The biggest thing that we've learned together as a group is not to beat yourself up.
Yeah, which is hard sometimes.
It is, and Jeff's the worst at that.
Right.
Hey, I'm not the worst. I'm just close.
He beats himself up, even though. I can't say out of those 5,000 stores I've been into that there's any that I would like to be a customer of and hang out on a daily basis. And your store is one of those. Jeff's store is one of those.
Right.
Jeff Borsowitz's Davidoff in Tampa, definitely one of those. Oh, wow. Such a baller store.
Yeah, it is.
So the next question I would have, if this is me teaching you guys how to do a podcast.
Yeah, go ahead. This is
Cool.
Podcast 101.
I'm just surprised Mike hasn't interrupted me yet.
Yeah, you scared him.
He's dumbfounded.
I don't know what to do. I have no. It's such good information.
I mean, not the best rep in Florida. We know that's Gruber.
Right.
But maybe the second best rep in all of Florida.
For sure. For sure.
For a short period of time.
Yeah.
At least.
It was a good run.
It was a good run.
I mean, the abuse that's on the road is just fucking horrendous.
But there again, in that failure, you learned.
Oh yes, definitely.
You know a whole lot more about this business than you thought.
Oh,
you
sure did. Yep.
Because I can tell you right now, the first piece of advice that I gave Mr. Palmer when he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this," I said, "Don't fucking do it."
Well, let me tell you. I spent 6 months working in Chow Mein in my previous life. And other than the fear of being kidnapped by taxi drivers and the fact that I was afraid to eat anything other than whenever I would travel to places like China, I would bring this humongous, Price Mart, Costco kind of thing of peanut butter.
Right.
And that's what I would eat.
Nice.
So
No fish heads for you?
No fish heads for me.
Not even rice?
I could maybe rice if I had saw it prepared in front of me. But I lost my train of thought there. But the kind of the next thing I would ask would be, so today you came to this field hearing that Marco Rubio had. What were your thoughts of that in terms of, everybody talks about what the future of FDA in our business is. A lot of times you get all this secondhand information about what's happening in Washington. Today we had a presidential candidate, senator from this biggest cigar state, arguably, who was talking pretty intelligently about cigars. I mean, what were your overall thoughts of the hearing?
Well, this ties into a question we just had about expectations, and I really didn't expect much out of this hearing because of kind of the evolution of this over the years, and I was really kind of pleasantly surprised in that aspect of how much Rubio actually knew. And I don't know if you caught, I'm sure you probably did, but he said, we're not going to let this happen. And he specifically flat out on the record said, we are not going to let this happen. And I've never heard anybody, politician or otherwise, say that.
I mean, that's like when someone says just the tip, right? I mean,
Right.
doesn't
I'll call
really.
you tomorrow.
It's like I don't want it to happen, but it's gonna happen.
Well, so I was encouraged.
So on the representative side, there were 2 people from the House of Representatives and Marco Rubio. And on the witness side, who was there?
Dr. Brad Rodu from the University of Louisville in their endowed chair of tobacco harm reduction research.
Yeah, so tell us about what he.
Well, Brad's actually a friend, a colleague of one of my customers in my store, and he has spent the last 10 years or so looking at tobacco harm as a whole, tobacco harm reduction. And he's spent the last couple of years pointing out the hypocrisy of the FDA's regulations and what they're saying and what the data and the research actually show. And the data and the research aren't showing what the FDA wants them to show, and they're doubling down on what they want it to show anyway.
And this is their own studies.
This is their own studies that say that the addictive qualities of nicotine.
Right.
Well, all 3 of the concepts that make something addictive, premium cigars don't meet any of them.
What are those 3 things? As you drink your Diet Coke.
Yeah, as I drink my Diet
The bourbon
Coke.
bar
You think
owner
I'd be good at this? You think I'd be better at this? It was frequency of use, which is your average cigar smoker smokes 1.7 cigars per month.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
More or less.
Más o menos.
Just más o menos, just like us, right? We smoke 1.7 an hour.
Right.
What were the other 2?
It was. I don't know. I'm not an addict, so I don't know.
Well, it talks about the way he was talking about the way that you consume. But so we're kind of getting into the Skip podcast.
No, the Skip Cup podcast is going to be 5 hours long, no matter what. But
No matter what we do.
He's going for the record.
the point being was
The point being that premium cigars don't meet any of the qualities that the FDA is looking for in an addictive.
so they're not addictive.
They're not addictive.
And what was the other reason why they passed the Tobacco Control Act?
Child use, which even the FDA's own studies showed less than 1%. It didn't even register on their scale.
Right.
Right.
And there was one more.
So why regulate it?
Yeah, that's the gist of everything is kids don't use it. It's not addictive. There's no discernible negative health impacts.
That was the third one. There's no discernible health impact, so it's not addictive. There's no discernible health aspects, and children aren't using premium cigars.
It's not a gateway to cigarette smoking.
Right.
40%, I think he said, of all cigar smokers had never even used another tobacco
And
product.
the average age of first premium cigar smoked was 24 and a half years old.
Right. And so how did you feel in terms, he was one of the witnesses. Another witness was from the Small Business Administration.
We're going to go. We'll be back in a little bit.
Well, and that's, Skip, you and I
Stay
had
tuned for
that
the new Skip
conversation.
Martin.
Actually, I had
Cigar
that
Hustler.
conversation with Glenn Loop this morning. And my question to him was, isn't there a law on the books that says that any government regulation passed has to pass a review of its impact on small business? And I thought that had disappeared, but I guess that's part of the basis of the lawsuit that the CRA has filed, that they've failed to consider the impact on small business. And he reiterated that they've tried to work with the FDA, and the FDA has essentially ignored them.
Yeah, he basically said, A, they didn't really ask us beforehand. B, after it came into pass, it was 2 years before they really accepted what we were trying to tell them.
Right.
And when they reopened the matter,
Yeah, they didn't respond to their new letter.
right. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I think Jeff Borsowitz and was it Wes Newman?
David, I think. Is it
Dave Newman.
David.
Yeah, so they were kind of from the industry side. I mean, what
Right.
were your take on their testimony?
Well, I was glad to hear Jeff's testimony that it didn't devolve into what I thought it might devolve into. I thought that was nice. But their perspective was really good. I thought Jeff, especially from the farming aspect of it, it was Drew Newman.
Drew Newman. Yeah.
Drew. That's
Newman.
right, Drew.
Yeah, it was
Drew.
Drew. I thought Drew handled the retail end of it real well. I thought Jeff handled the farming end of it really well, because they don't talk about it. I thought of this the other day. It'd be like the FDA asking orange farmers to put the sugar content on every orange.
Right.
Right.
They couldn't do it because there's natural variability in that product. And the same thing as you were talking today about Viso and Ligero. Tell me the difference.
Right.
Not tell me the difference. Give it to an FDA inspector and have him tell you the difference.
Oh, good luck.
And then have him take last year's crop and this year's crop and tell you the difference.
Right.
Put that on your chromatic spectrograph analysis machine.
Boom. You know, I thought was really cool that Jeff Mouette said was the fact that nobody is going to step up under the FDA and say, hey, we're just going to exempt this. Because those people are looking for jobs when they get out of the FDA in the healthcare business or big pharma.
Well, yeah, politicians too.
Yeah.
They don't want to be on the record for anything pro
Right.
tobacco. I mean, one of the things that we talked about, there's this Smoke 21 legislation that's starting to pass in a lot of different states.
Right.
I don't know. It's like the flavor of the month. Change tobacco use. Even though most of these guys can't balance a budget, they want to prevent people who can
Right.
sit on a jury and send someone to jail for the rest of their life from making a decision to...
Or go to Iraq or Iran and kill people.
Yeah. They don't even want to hear that anymore. They don't want to hear the military thing anymore. We've completely forgotten about,
Right.
These kids that sign up and go catch a bullet and fucking shithole Stanistan or whatever.
But
Right.
then we want to lower the voting age to 16
Yeah, exactly.
and legalize marijuana.
But the most salient point, when I asked Jeff, what was the point you thought you made that had the most resonance, was his point about the difference between mass market cigars that are owned. You can go to 7-Eleven and see 30
Right.
products, and they're all 3 companies.
Right.
Right.
And then you can go to his shop and see aisles and aisles and aisles, 1,000, 1,500 different brands.
Right.
And, most of them are small family companies.
Right.
Like ours, so.
Well, and we don't talk about this much in the premium cigar industry, but cigars worldwide, somewhere around $13.7 billion industry. Premium cigars, our category, is less than $1 billion of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mass market cigars are so much bigger than premium cigars. I mean, and that's the point. If you ask me what Borshowitz, the biggest point you made was we could get squashed through nobody's necessarily targeting premium cigars. We just get squashed in the byproduct of going after mass market cigars and cigarettes.
Yeah, absolutely. And
like a bug on a windshield.
yeah, and he brought up the Cuban cigar thing too, which apparently is the main thing a lot of people are talking about. But it would be great if you could get these politicians to simultaneously vote for 21-year-old access, since it's happening in a lot of places.
Right.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you could combine those bills together, it would give a lot of cover to some people who are kind of on the fence, I think.
Right.
So we had that conversation on the side. And all right, the next question I would ask
here we
you,
go.
if
Well, and
Mike has a clipboard with paper, and there's absolutely
there's
nothing written on the
nothing
paper.
on
I-
it. One
Yeah.
more,
I got
one
a
more,
pen, too.
one more aside here on the FDA stuff. The FDA, if given the opportunity, is going to regulate us to the nth degree. The FDA exists to regulate. That's their
we're a rounding error.
that's their reason for existence.
We're not even big enough for them to put any significant amount of time into creating a specific regulatory regime just for us.
Which is why we're going to need legislative relief at the end of the day.
Or judicial relief.
Or judicial relief.
So what's the question for him?
So the next question is,
Yeah.
your store is located over the bridge from Louisville, Kentucky.
Correct?
So the majority of your market really comes from Louisville.
About half and half.
But you're actually in Indiana.
Correct.
And so there's 2 questions. One is, why did you not start a store in Kentucky, but you did start it in Indiana? And then the second question would be, you have this huge event that happens in Louisville, the Derby. Mm-hmm. And how does that affect what happens in your store in terms of preparing for this huge influx of business for essentially what's a Super Bowl in Kentucky?
Well, part one,
I was so going to ask that question.
The next podcast.
It's right there in the paper.
Next
Yeah, it's
podcast.
written down on this piece of paper.
on that blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
The answer to part one is Louisville and Lexington have smoking bans, neither of which, I know Louisville's for a fact, does not exempt cigar stores or cigar bars. There is actually a tobacco business exemption, but 75% of your sales have to be of the This is a long story, but 75% of your gross annualized sales have to be from tobacco products.
So have you had discussions with city council people or other people in Louisville about why you started across the border? I mean, a corollary I always think of is when Dave Garofalo left Massachusetts, and he has a store basically on the first exit of every way out of Massachusetts. And he basically said, okay, if you pass this law, New Year's Day, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And he did.
We actually had a city councilman for several years that came, and obviously he was like, well, I want to pass it, I want to pass it, I want to pass it, but they won't let me pass it. Their position is that they have given us an exemption. We just need to find a way to make it work. But there's no way to make it work unless you don't serve alcohol, which unfortunately I don't really want to do this again without being able to serve alcohol.
Yeah, no shit.
Because it's a big buffer against the variability and the seasonability of cigar business, and that buffer really helps you stay afloat. And there's no way that you could run a cigar bar and have 75% of your gross annualized sales. Additionally, the health department enforces that ban, and the health department will give you, I've got a 50 email thread with them. They will not give you any answers. They were specifically, I asked, gross annualized sales. Does that mean I get a year before you say anything to me?
Right.
Because gross annualized sales is a year of sales.
Right.
Well, we don't know. You'll just have to open up and see.
Oh, good.
Well,
that's nice.
The bane of business is uncertainty. So if they come in and say, well, we decided that your gross annualized sales, we're now going to do them weekly,
right.
monthly. No, we decided daily.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why is uncertainty worse than a bad law? So, I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think that's something people don't have a business don't understand, but let's say they come up with a law and says you can't have alcohol and cigars in the same business. Or they say we may be passing a law like this. Why is uncertainty worse than...
Well, because...
How you doing over there? You having a good time?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good. That's fun.
a bad law...
By the way, this is what I do at home. I'll sit on the...
He does.
You can ask Garland. I
Yeah.
sit on the porch and listen to this podcast and go, those fucks, they didn't even ask this question. I would ask this guy this question, so...
Nice.
A
You know,
bad law-
I should check in with you before.
Yeah, I was
I'm
saying
like,
you
hey,
should
you got
start
any
checking in
questions?
with-
You know, hey, I got this
I've got so-and-so sitting here.
Yeah,
What should I
is
be
there anything
asking?
that you want me to ask in particular?
We can just FaceTime him
why
and
is
set him
that
instead of
A bad
front of a
law gives
microphone.
you the opportunity for a reasonably intelligent person to find a workaround. Uncertainty takes that away from you, because if you find a workaround, they can come back and say, no, that's not it. That doesn't work. And if there's no law on the books that says this is the way they have to interpret it. If a law's on the books and you find a workaround, you found a workaround. Right?
Right.
If there's an interpretation to a statute that they are open to say, this is our interpretation, this is our interpretation, this is our interpretation, the uncertainty can kill you.
Yeah, you can't invest, you can't borrow money, you can't build something, you
Can't do anything.
Yeah. So the Derby. How much of your business is done in the month of May versus most retail shops, I would say, begins to start to pick up in April, gets a little better October, November, big holiday season, dead in the winter.
May and December are our best months of the year. Depending on, Derby's a little bit weird in that it falls on the first Saturday of May every year. So sometimes the week leading up to that is the last week of April, and that will kick April into the lead as far as our best sales month. But it's one of our top 2 sales months every year. We probably have, there's 250,000 people at the Oaks the day before the Kentucky Derby, and there's usually about 250,000 people at the Derby. Fully 60 or 70% of those are out-of-towners. A lot of them are looking for cigars. A lot of them are looking for a place to smoke cigars. So we do quite a bit of our business on that.
Do you think he'll ask him
On that
some
week.
questions?
So how do you
answer the
prepare for when your business goes from X amount of customers per day to 10x customers per day?
If you're asking, I mean, if I know in advance that it's happening, I mean,
Don't you have to assume that it's going to happen?
Yeah. Clearly, we increase staff, we increase orders, we prepare for it. We're ready for it.
Okay, I'll ask you a more interesting question. I thought you'd have something there, but I would edit that out if I was the
I
producer.
get Roma Craft to make me a Craft 2019 release.
That would have been
That's
better.
what I
That would have
do.
been better for February, though. So, okay, here's another interesting thing about Jeff. Jeff owns one of the best bourbon bars, Match. It's connected. It's a separate business, but it's connected to Riverside.
Mm-hmm. He does.
I spent a lot of hours with Jeff. Jeff drinks Diet Coke.
Yes.
Jeff doesn't drink.
He does.
So what is it like being like, the guy from Cheers, owning a bar, selecting barrels of bourbon, selecting specific things for your... I mean, you smoke, selecting cigars for customers is a natural thing. You said you only wanted to put something into your store.
Yeah, he only put something in the store he smoked.
Right.
But you don't put bourbons in that you
because you don't drink. So how do you select
How
the
do you know they're
bourbons
good?
for your
How do you do
bar?
that?
How do I do that? Well, number one, I've actually... number one, we've got a great staff.
Right.
And my bar staff is as knowledgeable as nearly anybody in the Kentuckiana area as far as their bourbon knowledge and their craft cocktail knowledge. I rely on them a lot. But I also go on every barrel pick, and 3 out of the 4 times I've identified the one they were going to pick before they picked it, by just smelling it and knowing what I know about bourbon. And it's not like I never drank. I just don't drink anymore. And as far as...
I've tried. Believe me, I've tried.
As far as how do I do it, I do it standing upright, which I never would have if I drank and owned a bar. I'd have been doing it from the floor.
But you do bet on the...
I do bet on the Derby.
So do you
The waitress
provide a
just came
pick-
in with popcorn.
Do you
Anybody want
provide a
popcorn?
pick every year for the
I
Derby?
provide a 4-horse pick every year for the Derby.
What's more interesting, the Oaks or the Derby?
Derby.
Period.
Why?
Derby, period. The Derby is one of the only horse races
Can't
in
keep his hands
America
down.
that has 20
What?
horses taken off from the gate. They actually have a
He
second
talked with his
auxiliary
hands.
gate. And literally, as you increase the number of entrants, anything can happen in the Derby. The Oaks will typically have 9 to 12 horses in it. The Derby will almost every year have 20, unless there's a late scratch. And the uncertainty with 20 horses crashing out of a starting gate, all 20 of them trying to get to the rail to save ground, makes for some exciting betting.
Boom. There you go.
Okay, last question. Should have been Mike's last question, but as one of the best small retailers in the country, what would your best piece of advice to another cigar retailer be if they were getting
Ooh,
started,
we should
or,
add that question.
or if they're
We should add that on as
Don't do it.
or if they're
Don't fucking do it.
Don't do it.
or if they're finding that they've lost their passion, or they're not doing that well. What would be your advice for someone like that?
If you want to make a small fortune, no.
Right.
If you want to make a small fortune in the cigar business, start with a large fortune.
Right.
I think my biggest advice would be to be yourself and do what you do and do it well.
Get as many partners as
And
possible.
Get as many partners as humanly possible. Buy your store back as many times as you can before you
Get
take
the
a
thrill
penny
of buying
out.
your
Before you
store
take a
over and
penny out
over
of it.
again.
But really, the one thing that drives me crazy about this industry is everybody's worried about what everybody else is doing all
Sure.
the time, on the retail end and on the manufacturing end. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll engage in some of that sometimes,
Right.
but most of the time, I'm like, fuck that bullshit. We do what we do,
Right.
and we do it to the best of our ability. I don't give a shit what Joe Blow down the street is selling. I don't care if he's doing buy one, get one. I don't care if John Drew's in his store. I don't care if Skip Martin's in his store,
Right.
because we do.
I would never be in that guy's
Yeah,
store.
no.
I know.
I'd be in your store.
Do what you do and do it well.
Right.
I mean, have a plan. Mine was half-assed, but I had a plan.
Hey.
Do what you do and do it well.
You still took the leap, you know?
Don't worry what everybody else is doing, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because if you're not working on your store, what'd you say?
Which part?
Which part? The store is the business is the business, or what?
Oh, the improving.
Yeah.
You improve improving the business is the business.
Is the business.
Right.
I mean, so if you're not at your store, concentrated on your store every day, if you're worried about what Joe Blow down the street's doing, you're going to fail.
Right.
You're
Well,
going to fail.
Let me ask it this way. You visit a lot of other stores.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk into a store, what are the things you look at as a customer and someone who has some insight on the retail side? Whether it's a good store, whether it's not a good store, what are the things you look for?
You know, I'm really kind of. That was
This
good.
episode's
We're gonna
full
need
of
that. We're
sound
gonna need another
effects.
bottle of wine.
We're going to need another bottle.
have
We
one.
already got another bottle of wine.
I know. I'm watching.
You know, that's That's a really good question. I'm always
Thank
more
you.
concerned.
I generally ask good questions.
You generally do.
You usually bring props.
I'm always more concerned
disappointed.
with the feel of a store and the atmosphere of a store than the. I mean, and there are some stores that I go into and I sit there and I wonder how the hell they're pulling this off. One specific store in Indianapolis I walked into, and I'm sitting there watching the 3 staff they had for every customer that came through. One person lighting their cigar, one person cutting their cigar, 2 bartenders, 2 girls circulating, 3 guys in the humidor.
Well, I can tell you how they do it. They're just laundering cash. That's what they're doing.
Well, no, I found out how they did it because we had 4 cigars, 3 drinks, and a Diet Coke, and the tab was $270. That's how they do it.
And it was $5,000.
That's how they do it. That's how you afford $250,000 of ventilation, and your air smells like friggin' cinnamon and vanilla when you walk out of there. And
Right.
They got a dry cleaner for your jacket, and I mean,
That's what it takes.
but
200
you know,
something else.
it's
Like 3 Diet Cokes.
the thing I really
2
wanted to do
cigars.
when I opened my cigar store, because I'd been in a lot of
Cokes.
cigar stores,
Big
and I
Cokes.
smoked cigars like you for 30 years before I opened a store. And I didn't want, I'm not going to call names, but I didn't want one of those hard-edged, all chrome and glass, disco-looking cigar bars that you walk in and you immediately feel intimidated.
Right.
But I didn't want one of the shitty rat hole places where everything's worn out and everything's beat down and nothing's been cleaned and everything's got a layer of dust on it. You go in the back of the humidor.
The old guy death waiting room.
Death waiting room,
Right.
you know, with the cranky guy behind the counter and saying, I don't know what's back there, you son of a bitch.
Right.
No, we don't cut cigars here.
I'm watching General Hospital. Leave me alone.
Whoa, whoa.
Roma crap.
Whoa.
Never heard of her.
Whoa. You leave Luke and Laura alone.
So being one of the premium retailers in the country, what's the best-selling brand in your store?
Romacraft. Damn it. I did it again. 7 of our top 10 cigars are Romacraft.
Well, thanks for joining us here, Jeff, at Mike
Yeah,
and Skip.
thanks thank you for,
Mike and Skip's podcast.
Skip's podcast. All right. Well, hey, I guess that'll pretty much wrap it up, right?
Ooh, yeah, I'm tired. This is long.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for
Yes,
coming
Jeff,
on.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having me.
No sleep and
I
driving all the
appreciate
way
you
over.
coming out and it's taking the extra ride over here, and it's
It's been on so long. It's probably time for him to go back to the airport.
What's another sleepless night?
I'm glad you got to finally check out the shop, even though it was ever so brief. And
Birthday's tomorrow.
Oh, it's his birthday.
Yeah.
shit.
Yep.
Is.
Wow.
A song, happy birthday.
If you were a good
to her.
friend, Mike, you'd know that.
Yeah.
I'm usually on top of that,
Little happy birthday.
like on the podcast.
He just looks at
I can put it
Facebook
in.
and sees that it's my birthday
Mike
tomorrow.
waits for
What's
the
wrong with
Facebook
that?
notice.
Oh, I know. He does it to me
He does.
too. I get that
See,
same.
so like here's the
Oh.
thing. So I don't understand what's wrong with that.
What?
What's the big deal?
What?
Like, I mean, that's what I
It's
use
just
my
like his
fucking phone
Facebook
around.
calendar for birthdays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, even his wife.
The-
I get that standard happy birthday on Facebook.
Just fucking boom.
Do you
Yeah.
really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I do.
I love it. I eat it up.
Not even a photo collage, nothing.
Oh,
Just happy
wow.
birthday.
Yeah.
Not
it's
even a photo collage. That's the
nothing.
standard now.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I mean, like for me,
Not even a video for
like,
a birthday?
as far as I'm concerned on social media, like I don't like to promote and fucking talk a ton about my wife and kids. It's just not. That's not what I do there. Like that's not my realm. A lot of people who feel like that they want to show off their family. I mean, I'm proud of my fucking family. I love my wife. I love my kids above everything else on this planet. But that doesn't mean I have to fucking boast about them every goddamn 10 seconds.
I will say,
and to each their own. If that's what you want to do, good for you. On
I will
Facebook.
say this
Stop
with
touching my
Arlen
Michael.
sitting here. Whenever Mike comes to Nicaragua, or really anytime I spend time with Mike, but particularly when he comes to Nicaragua, like every 10 fucking minutes he's on FaceTime with you.
That's true.
And so Arlen looks at me and she's like, okay, I see how
How
it
come
is.
you don't FaceTime me?
How come when you're in the States you don't FaceTime with me every 10 minutes? I'm
Yeah.
like,
So I set the standard in that house, cause some fucking problems.
It's usually just like at nighttime for the boys to FaceTime you good night. Because I know that's important to you.
Well, that's obviously not true now, is it?
Maybe. I'm stopping. No more,
Oh,
I'm not
you
calling you anymore.
you shutting
This
down?
is me shutting down.
She FaceTimes you a lot every day.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting.
No way!
I'm like, seriously, again? Really?
I like when Mike's in
it's
the bathroom and
usually-
you hear his
it's
phone
usually
ring
this-
and he's
I would say at
FaceTiming.
least
when he
40%
takes
of
Now,
the time.
Brittany, you're handling this really well because I know somebody that'd be crying already.
At least 40% of the time, it's Brittany in center frame.
Mm-hmm.
It's the two kids, the two boys, throwing shit at her, climbing on top of her. She's just got this completely blank, exhausted look going.
Defeated.
See, See what I'm doing? See what I'm dealing with?
I hate you.
Like,
I hate you. You're gone.
I love you.
That's cool. I'm here on the patio, just smoking a
Sit with
cigar.
Skip.
Usually the kids get
Listen
sick
to
when
Skip
you guys
on a
come.
podcast.
Every time.
So
All right, thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
This
thank
is
you.
probably maybe the most interesting hour of the Hustler podcast ever.
you think so?
Why would that be, Skip?
Well,
I don't-
until
I
the
mean-
Questions
next
were
hour.
so good.
Yeah, next week's podcast of
Week
of-
after next.
of
I
the
want to hear
Skip
this.
Hustlers.
I want to hear this
Yeah, this one,
marathon.
yeah.
I need to download
It's probably
the
in the
marathon.
next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of information. I'm ready to go.
Only if you bring up the strip clubs. You gotta talk about
We
that.
can talk about the all-nude strip club. I don't care.
Fantastic. I got a couple.
I've
It's like-
lived a
He's
full
giving his
life.
own teaser.
I got
for
a couple
next week.
stories that I want you to talk about. So, all right.
All right, let's cut this off and start the next one then.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from the correctional institution. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, thank you for using T-Netics.
This has been a Cigar Hustlers Podcast featuring Skip Martin from Roma Craft Tobacco, a Mike and Mike production. Make sure to come back every Tuesday at 10 a.m. for a new episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe on whichever providers you use, and be watching out for the videos soon, folks, on YouTube. Thanks for listening.